Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Point. On this ironically beautiful Thursday, we continue the discussions that we've been having all week. Sean Michael Small here on your Content Capital. We will be joined by our guests. We had them last week. We're hoping that they'll be here again, Mr. Timothy Hammersmith and Mr. Steve Alvarez. Apologies from my co-host being unable to join us today. However, of course, he wishes all of TNT well. Now, it is an interesting time that we live in because I guess we always see certain things in foreign media and we think about how bad it is, but we don't experience anything like it. We don't necessarily know firsthand what it's like. Some of you might have been there in the city, seen it up close, but the vast majority of us, we see tragedy on international news. It could be buildings collapsing, it could be mass casualties in a large-scale traffic accident, or it could be school shootings. And today we got news, while it wasn't necessarily a school shooting, it was a gunfight, a 10-minute gunfight near a school. We have a clip. Let's just run the clip so that I think where I'm coming from, you, the viewer, might have a better understanding.
Be quiet, children. Be quiet. The other side is answering that. Aisha, down. Down. Oh gosh, down, children. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Shh. Shh. Oh my God! Children, be down. Shh. Shh. Children, just be quiet. Just be quiet.
Kudos to that teacher for doing, I would say, a pretty good job realizing the potential danger her students are in. I mean, those are open bricks there. I'm not entirely sure if it goes straight to the outside or if it just opens out into another room, but it looked as though you could have seen through two walls. And while the teacher, I can't imagine to what extent she was frightened, but she did not panic and did not then cause the kids to panic. The kids seemed pretty calm. Perhaps at that age, you're not entirely sure what's going on because thankfully the situation, the gunshots sounded that they stayed far away. But in that situation, I think the teacher was pretty prudent in that she was concerned, well, hopefully it stays far away. Hopefully it doesn't come here. And that's why she was also telling the kids to be quiet. Don't attract any attention. Stay down because a stray bullet, and with these high-powered rifles, the risk of a stray bullet is very real. And you don't need to have an open wall for a stray bullet to come and potentially do damage. Depending on what's in its path. It could go through wooden walls, especially if it's just plywood. It could go through wooden doors if they're thin enough. And you don't need the bullet to come through intact. You just need fragments. These are children. It doesn't take much to seriously injure them, much less kill them. So she kept them calm. She kept them quiet. And that's where it echoes what we see going on in school shootings abroad. The fear about if the gunman actually comes in here. Because in the moment, the teacher would not have known exactly what was going on. All she knows is she's in a school, she has a classroom of students that she is responsible for in a situation that she is not equipped to deal with. And we could only be grateful that she did her best. A lesser person might have run and abandoned the kids. But she did her best to encourage them to stay down, stay quiet, not attract attention. And thankfully, it seemed as though it was a case of gang warfare outside of the school. They had no intention of coming in. Can we take for granted now, however, that something is not going to cause somebody to trip off somewhere? In a society such as ours, where it doesn't seem as though we have consequences to any action, what are the consequences? It only takes a spark, and that's a saying that at times could have a positive connotation, but it also has a negative one. All it takes is a spark to light a fire of division, of hate, of rage, of anger. So we don't know if the next situation where we see a video quite like this, the circumstances might be different. Parents are getting frustrated at how the education system is being handled. Students are getting frustrated. And again, in a situation where we could barely hold criminals accountable, exactly what are we going to expect the TTPS to do more when our school situation is not necessarily secure? But in this case, it's a feedback loop. Because the gangsters come near a school, circumstances could have been different. They could have had their shootout. A stray bullet could have ricocheted into a classroom, and then we would be talking a very different situation this morning. A lot of things could change, are up in the air. There are a lot of different ways this could play out, where we could see an even worse tragedy. And that doesn't even begin to figure out just exactly what did these kids know in the moment, how aware they were, and what would this experience do to their development, to their emotional growth and stability. Because to some extent, as you saw them watching the teacher hanging on her every instruction, they knew that this was not normal. And from what we understand, potentially situations like this in that area and certain other hotspots are not necessarily uncommon. This goes back to what some of the callers said yesterday with regards to the potential new low-income, high-rise, or whatever project development in the green space, in the middle or among 5 schools. And the fact that in San Fernando, where this project is supposed to be placed, where it's being developed, where it's being situated, the track record of those situations basically give us a vulnerable area for criminals to exploit. And the citizens are concerned that there is no difference in this new development as compared to all the ones they've seen before, except it's in the middle of schools. We already have a lot of problems with our education system, and that is feeding into the crime situation. Now we're potentially seeing the crime situation reach to such a height that is going to directly affect our nation's schools. Not in a, well, some of the young boys, they see gangsters and they want to have that life that they think is so nice. But literally, violent actors on the outside potentially affecting the students on the inside. This is primary school. We don't know to what extent this is going to mold young minds into a very negative way. We don't know what it's going to change in the dynamics of how they view authority, how they view their nation. Because if we let it get out of hand, and this is, you know, any given Wednesday, any given Tuesday, any given Friday, if this becomes a norm, and you might be saying, well, Sean, it's only one incident. Do we have to wait for a second one to then be concerned? Because we saw when one child was hit, collateral damage in spray and pray. And then another child was hit. Well, isn't one supposed to be too many? So, it's a lot to unpack because the problem is, it's just so big. There's just so many things that are contributing to our national security failures. The judiciary has some part to play in this, and their inefficiencies, and how long it takes to just have any progress with any sort of criminal matter, no matter how small or large. The fact that the Minister of National Security literally only says buzzwords, and anybody that has to deal with marketing or public relations on any level, to some extent, will understand. Buzzwords, yes, you throw them out there. They're the words that are popular because people ascribe meaning to it. You're using it because people give the words meaning, not because you have anything meaningful to say. It covers up your lack of having anything meaningful to say. The Minister of National Security, that's what I'm saying. The last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 public appearances had nothing meaningful to say. The head of the National Security Council finally remembered that he's the head of the National Security Council and met this week. July and August had over 60 murders each. That's over 2 a day. Right? Over 2 a day for an entire year would be well over 600. We're talking 700 murders. That's how bad those 2 months were, because we have yet to experience things that bad. Well, we did. That wasn't enough to get the Prime Minister involved. No, he had to wait a couple more months and then had a meeting. It's almost as though he was too busy trying to figure out, you know, how to not talk about A&V drilling. Anyway, education is in a mess. Our national security system is in a mess. Why do we have 3 battalions in a defense force and no threat on the horizon from a foreign power? What does the Coast Guard actually do with those boats that we pay for? I have no idea. This is the end result. But anyway, let's take a break. Hopefully, I'll be joined to continue on this conversation and the lack of accountability. It's children now. Not child, now we reach children. Children being affected by gun violence. Thankfully, it was in such a minor way. And I say minor, relatively speaking, because, again, who knows how these kids are going to come out of that situation. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
We delve into the exciting world of neurology.
The brain's an electrical organ. If the brain doesn't get enough blood with food and oxygen to it, it's not able to supply the electricity to the rest of the body. If that happens for a prolonged period enough time where the brain stops getting blood, part of the brain dies. Essentially, that's a stroke.
Hey guys, so I'm getting a little nostalgic here, sitting on the blocks at the pool. Today we're going to talk a little bit about swimming. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your Content Capital, WESN.
Welcome back, folks, to Talking Points. I started off the show this morning. I showed the clip, or a clip, from a teacher at the elementary school where there was some gang shooting. And I guess I've reached a new level of frustration. The implications of what this could have been, what this could mean, it has me a bit upset, I guess you could say, because we've reached the point now where crime touching children is becoming more and more regular of an occurrence. And I'm not seeing society on a whole really do anything differently. right? The Prime Minister, head of the National Security Council, make a big fuss about that last year when he needed to justify interfering with an independent service commission. All of a sudden, he now remembers this week that, hey, maybe I'm in charge of something that might have something to do with what's going on here. So, but I'm not seeing society, I'm not seeing voters, maybe, yes, other commentators like myself, people in the media, I'm not seeing it. However, with that said, I am joined now with former President of the Senate, Mr. Timothy Hamel-Smith, who I guess, I don't know if you share in my frustration at the crime situation, because it seems as though, it's not as though there's some big, huge, dramatic, you know, mass shooting, terrorist bombing event that we could just point to and say, this is when it all, you know, went wrong. It's almost like if it's, you know, things are falling slowly but surely, you know, very steadily, as crime is getting out of control very steadily. And I wonder if the population is just not, well, they're kind of taking it for granted. They're not really seeing that this is bad.
Well, there's more to it than that. Good morning to you viewers. Good morning, Sean. And thanks. I'm great to be joining you this morning. But it's worse than you think it is. What you're saying is it's a disintegration of our society. So it is not a collapse, you know, a one-time moment when you say, well, a bomb fell. This is the slow disintegration. This has been going on for a long time. There's some good points that I learned from that story. I was delightfully surprised at how nice the premises were. The environment in which those children were was, I didn't know it was Roselle. I didn't know where it was. I saw the videos. And I thought, hey, this is a sort of preschool, it seemed to be, environment that is very nurturing, caring. You can hear the teacher.
Yes.
She didn't run away and hide herself, but she understood her responsibility. But why I say it's worse than it appears to be, is because when children of that age are facing toxic stress, because if you have guns firing around you, that is toxic stress. When you combine that with the fact that, you know, there may be abuse or neglect in the home, what is happening is that children then, by the time they reach primary school, have difficulty learning. What the science coming out is saying that at that age, your brain is growing rapidly, all right, providing it has the right environment to grow. When you're in a toxic stress environment, what happens is the neurons in the prefrontal cortex do not meet. And that is what, it doesn't make connections. And that's how the brain operates. So when you get to primary school, if that hasn't happened, you are not understanding what the teacher is. You're becoming frustrated. You're becoming angry. You start getting fights with your co's, your peers. You start to get angry with the teacher. You become disruptive. And it just slowly goes downhill so that by the time you reach common entrance, ready to go to secondary school, you are a prime target for gangs. So this toxic syndrome that you see herein, now within that environment where guns are firing outside of the school, is part of what is a problem for these children. Because what you're also doing is there are opportunities for growth. Then all that diminishes already by the time they reach age 5.
Wouldn't it also be a case where if this ends up being their perceived reality, they perceive this to be normal, doesn't that then kind of diminish their hope, their want to say, well, no, I could rise above whatever circumstances I am, and all too often it's just, no, this is my reality. So they kind of resign themselves as they get older and older at whatever level, secondary school, etc.
So if you have been exposed to anything better, it becomes, it's not that you can't rise, that 100% of the people will find that they can't emerge from their circumstances, but a great percentage, such a great percentage that it becomes a worrying factor for society as a whole, will remain, under that sort of an umbrella where you don't know anything better. You think this is the norm, and that's a very sorry state to be in.
I mean, and this is not, from what I understand, within the last month, or at most 6 weeks, this is not the only incident that I've heard of. There could have been one, maybe two others, at the very least, just in Port of Spain, right? So I can't even necessarily speak to any other part of the country. So it's not to say, well, it's a one-time thing and it's a fluke. From what I'm not expecting it to be that way. I'm expecting that this is a sign of a greater trend with regards to criminality, where they seem to not respect not just the police as much as they might have done before, but also just certain things with society. Don't commit violence around, old people, children. Those risks to have less care about where the violence spreads to.
You've created a new norm. That's what you've done. And this norm is getting, is getting lower and lower. So that what becomes a new normal for that area, and it impacts the entire society. No matter where you are living, that is going to come home to haunt you. We need to raise people up, and instead what we're doing is keeping them under, suppression, as it were.
Then, doesn't that go back to where I started, the first comment I made when I introduced you, that I think people are kind of getting almost too used to this, too accustomed to this.
It's a new normal.
Because it was so incremental. Even the murder rates, we went from 300 to 500 murders a year, but it was a steady rise. It wasn't one big jump.
When that can happen openly, because this is an open event, right? That indicates that what really we want to. We hear about bail, no bail for people and stuff, but what we really need is to have a gun court. If you're caught with a gun, unlicensed, then you go to the gun court, the police give their evidence, and you get the punishment as a result. But if we don't do that, it becomes a new normal. There is no intervention. And I don't think that bail or the lack of bail is a proper intervention, quite frankly.
Right.
I think, personally, that's worse than a state of emergency. I hear the Prime Minister saying, we don't want a state of emergency. But in a state of emergency, there are protections provided where people can appeal. When you get thrown in to jail, pending bail, and your matter takes 10 or 15 years for an offense that could carry a 2-year penalty, that has to be injustice. So the criminal system, justice system, becomes a system of injustice. What generally the people who experience that become more and more anti-justice, because they are right to say that it cannot be justice. And what you created is a police state. Because I am the police, I say you committed an offense, go to jail. There's no judiciary, there is no intervening, there's no independent person, because that's what really our justice system is, an independent body to supervise, to make a decision upon having heard the evidence of whether you're right or wrong. But that doesn't happen. I say you're wrong, go in jail, 10, 15 years.
And I guess that severely compounds the lack of rehabilitation, because there already is a situation with people unwilling to hire a convict. But now when somebody, as you said, when you're basically facing inflated pseudo sentences, because you haven't even actually been convicted yet, you're just in remand for an extended period of time, and criminals or people who are potentially innocent, even worse, but even those who are guilty of their crimes are in a technically unfair situation, an immoral situation.
As reported, are injustice by itself. And what you're not doing here, in a sense, you know, you also have an opportunity for people to turn their lives around. They have nowhere to go, but are we doing it? Are we trying? Are we just content to merely lock you away, throw away the key, and then let you out 10 years later, 5 years later?
Is it then a mixed message? Because the police, and I agree with having these measures, not necessarily relying on them solely. They're looking to try to get soft measures to try to steer young people away from crime. I think, though, with the Ministry of Education having its problems, that's a very uphill battle, to say the least. But you're going to do that at the start. What about those at the end? You're basically saying rehabilitation. After that treatment, unfair treatment, you're not going to trust the system. You're not going to trust the process anymore. So then why are you going to figure rehabilitation is going to work?
So you spiral downwards. You know, we are headed towards...
But when the people the young ones that might be looking for a life of crime, they look up to the older ones that seemingly have the fancy life, and the older ones will say, well, look, this one, he did 15 years for this minor charge, and look how unfair they treated all of these others. It's not just undermining any attempt to get people to buy into the system, to trust what they're telling.
Right. And so when you have an unfair system, when you lose confidence in a system, therefore there are no more norms. You don't abide by it because you feel that society is unfair to you. And you know what? I am going to do whatever I can in order to break out of that system. And guns and gangs are practiced. So we are creating the environment where crime and gangs thrive. We couldn't do it better, in other words. You couldn't do it better if you tried.
I mean,
you know, what do you say? We like it so. I mean,
yes. Yes.
And that is so damning. If people recognize, you know, they would put an end to it. They would try to reverse the cycle.
After the break, I want to get into the whole question about state of emergency, because I guess now it's probably going to be only a matter of time before some people are going to be extremely alarmed, and maybe we might get calls for extreme measures. And you've already pointed out this lack of bail situation is not really working. But I guess we could take a break right now, guys. Let's take a break, folks. This is... when Mr. Hammersmith said that it's worse than I think, I actually was surprised. And then I realized, yes, he might be very right. We'll continue this conversation when we come back.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. only on your content capital, WESN.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy. Right. Taking a knee along with other stuff. Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point on this, as I open the show, ironically beautiful Thursday morning. Despite the very unfortunate topic we have to talk about, we are now, of course, joined by Mr. Steve Alvarez, both the former political leader of the Democratic Party of TNT, as well as also a business leader. Of course, we still have Mr. Timothy Hammersmith with us, former president of the Senate and attorney at law. So we have both two men that have been in the political arena, as well as they are working professionals. These are not just people who sit in the ivory tower on high and not understand how the world works. And Mr. Alvarez, as you've now joined us, I'll come to you with regards to this situation. I've been speaking to Mr. Hammersmith. I have a fear that this is a trend downwards. And we might not just appreciate that, is to say, the society as a whole might not appreciate how bad it is and how bad it could still get very easily. We take it for granted, you know, TNT is a nice place and people are good people, but there seems to be enough of society degenerating into a whole new level that we have not yet experienced as a nation.
The question that people have to ask themselves, so why is it that we have gotten to this point? And we've gotten to this point because they've always been in the back of our mind the belief that if we have proper policing, if we have police on patrol, that the police will do their job. And no one is asking the question, how come, for example, recently in Digger Martin, when the police actually saw someone trying to kidnap someone, they stopped, there was no shootout, and on almost every instance, you hear that the bandits get away. Now, how could bandits get away in Trinidad and Tobago where we have such limited roads? So they go in a car, it's easy for the police to call up and say, listen, this is the car, and they could catch them. But what people don't want to admit, and they actually don't even want to talk about, is that there's not the will among the policemen to do what is required. I've had the personal experience where we were doing a construction job, and next to the construction job was a drug den, and one of the guys had gotten in a shootout. And so now there was this funeral celebration. At the funeral, these guys were shooting guns in the air, you know, doing a send-off. I think that's a new thing now. They have a send-off thing. And the Digger Martin police station was no more than 2 blocks away from that. So you are sure that everyone in that station could hear the guys shooting off their guns, and nobody came by. They wouldn't do that. So we have a false sense of security in where we believe that, one, that somebody cares. And let me tell you something. This is really, really scary. Nobody wants to admit it, but they don't care from the very top. Because if you cared from the very top, when our women are saying to the politicians, listen, let's just get non-lethal weapons so that we could at least defend ourselves from these guys, pepper spray or tasers. To this day, that's over a year and something, or maybe 2 years now they're talking about that. You to tell me in 2 years you can't get pepper spray to the vulnerable in our society so they could spray a bandit or somebody that's grabbing their phone or their chain. They're stuck somewhere in Parliament when you could go into Walmart in the United States and buy 5 of those things. I mean, it's when you get to that level of not caring. They make a big thing about this firearm user's permit. And I heard the Prime Minister the other night talking about, well, one man alone allowed so many firearms into the country. And that same man that he was talking about asked the question, of the 500 murders, how much of them were committed with legal firearms? So you're looking for scapegoats, and the vulnerable, the victims, nobody cares about. Even when a bandit comes to your house and you defend yourself, you have to explain why you took such force. Your life is at stake, you know. So there's not a concerted effort to deal with crime. As much as we would talk about it, there's absolutely nothing to do with it.
Just to add to that, there is a story that the victim came to us. It was something that we didn't necessarily speak out in the public domain because we weren't necessarily too sure how she was proceeding to handle it. And I do believe that at least she got some positive feedback from the acting commissioner of police or from his office after not getting any feedback from the former commissioner of police and his office. But the long and short is, why is that pertinent to this conversation, is she was in a situation where she was the victim of an accident where the family of the person who caused the accident was able to gain knowledge of her address, to come seek her out, to try to get her to drop the case or not testify or whatever. So already there you're getting interference with the natural course of justice. But then also during the trial now, and this is not her suing the person that caused the accident. This is the state because it was a serious, negligence of I believe the person was potentially drunk when they were driving. The police witnesses and police prosecutors had issues showing up. When I say police witness, I mean the officers on the scene to give testimony to what they found on the scene were not showing up to the case. And I think the judge and all was ridiculously frustrated at how the whole thing underwent. I'm just, I'm giving a second-hand account, so it's hearsay, right? But when we heard this story, and I get it, there's more issues with national security than just the TTPS. We have issues with the judiciary, etc., etc., etc. However, I think what you're saying there is right, and it's very, I guess beyond concerning. And Mr. Hamilton,
beyond concern, it's scary.
I have to ask you, because I've been saying that these things, they reek of what we hear about other areas of the public service. And I never thought that, okay, it's one thing if somebody in the Ministry of Education was lazy. But to say that the same sorts of practices writ large is potentially in not just the Defense Force, because what does the regiment do, right? Half the time, I don't know. But the police service, they have stuff to do every day. They are supposedly held accountable every day.
Yeah, but the problem really is we've become a patronage society in which to get anything done, somebody needs to know somebody who knows somebody. So what happened in your case? The perpetrator knew somebody who called somebody, and they say, stand down. And that happens with the Coast Guard. Why don't you see, this thing, let's get more vessels, let's have OPVs.
Exactly.
That's just for them to stand up and rot and not use. We don't have gas, we don't have fuel, we don't have diesel to power them. And when you do get powered and you hit a target, The Coast Guard get a call, stand down.
That's funny though.
You have to have a different remedy.
I have actually met an officer in the Coast Guard a few years ago who told me that he got such an instruction to stand down. So when you think about the fact that the people who are supposed to make you safe are not motivated to do. We've had a situation where in the Arima area, we were renting excavators and so on. And this guy was excavating for gravel and so on, and maybe he wasn't paying who he had to pay. So the police seized the excavator, except it wasn't his excavator, it was our excavator, it was a rental. And they seized it and took it to the secured Wallerfield Army base. And after we just had to go to the courts and so on so we could get our excavator back. By the time we got back the excavator, all of the critical parts of the excavator were gone. They were gone, taken from the excavator in a secured army base. So when you think about it, and then the case, of course, with that whole thing, he eventually had to pay who he had to pay, so it was all dismissed.
It's a symptom of the entire society breaking down. So you can't rely on justice.
I guess now it's the obvious thing, because you said it's from the top.
Yeah.
Right? And not only do we see where the corruption, it's funny, there's trickle-down economics. We have trickle-down corruption, where the corruption at the top literally trickles down to the bureaucrats at every level below, and then it reaches now to the civilians, to the common man, who see the corruption and say, well, hey, if they could do illegal things, I could do illegal things. So now I guess the question is, you asked, where did it come from? Well, where do we start to fix it? Because the picture you're painting, a state of emergency is just nice fluff and window dressing. And a lot of these initiatives, Prime Minister, you mentioned it off air with the new cameras. A lot of these initiatives, what's the point of new cameras if they're probably going to, whenever they're ready, hey, stand down on the cameras, shut them off. We don't want to keep the recording. That is very much a possibility.
Well, the answer to all of these things is political. Everything comes back to politics. But look at where we are. We have a situation where, with over 500 murders for the year, you do not have a substantive commissioner of police. Now, that couldn't be so difficult. I was chairman of the Statutory Authority Service Commission. So I know what the process is in terms as a service commission, in terms of evaluating who you have and making it. It's all it needs to know is one meeting. You have 5 applicants, and one meeting you look at it and say, or you have interviews and you interview them, and based on the scores, you determine who to. So the decision is that's not the problem. The problem is somebody is saying, not now.
As Mr. Hammersmith said, we like it so. Is it that the politicians, despite the crocodile tears, because that's where I've reached now, right? The Minister of National Security, in my opinion, has said nothing meaningful the last, I don't know how many times he's gone out in public. With all the crocodile tears, is it that they like it so? Is there something, but I don't understand what it could be.
It's not that, I don't think it's that they like it so. I think it's that you have to be, somewhere along the line, someone is answering to a higher directive.
Yes, somebody's benefiting. Somebody's benefiting. And when you have you know who really benefits? When you create a state of anarchy, it is the people who import the guns and import the cocaine. They can allow these things to pass without interference because there's so much disarray in the society. And really, you need to chop off the head.
We were talking this week about the fact that leadership in this country, what are the merits of our leaders, the accomplishments of our leaders? Why do we pick these people to lead us, the ones that we have picked, particularly in the last however many years? Couldn't really get a great answer to that. Right? It just comes back down to the racial political divide. But then, speaking to Karen and Keaton yesterday, both of them implied similar things, that even our Prime Minister and the senior members of Cabinet might, at least in some ways, be getting directives, getting instructions. Could it be from party financing? And then the theory, which some people will say, Sean, you're acting crazy and you're saying a pack of craziness. Others will say it's obvious, it's very obvious. Well, does drug money go into private business that goes into finances, then goes
money,
into...
money talks, bullshit walks.
It's about money. And we are not talking, and that's what people feel when they think about is that, yes, it's money, but it's how much money? I'm telling you, it's insane amounts of money. Insane amounts of money. So these people, when you're dealing with a fact that a man could just hand you a check for $10 million and don't batter an eye, it means that you, with all your great ambitions and all your great patriotism and so on, you are fighting against a situation where it's not easy. And I want to give you, before we take, let me give you an example. There's a young man who was a fantastic worker in Warsaw. And I remember when we were in Blue Range, he would meet with me, and that's how and he said, listen, we don't have water in the upper elevations. Okay, I'm going to set it up, and we're going to get mains and all that. So he worked with the Blue Range community, he worked with the Diego Martin community. And I suppose after a while, he would have gotten promoted because now I think he got promoted to contracts management or something like that, but he got promoted. 2 weeks after that young man was, I can't remember his name right now, but 2 weeks after he was promoted, and everybody was thinking, wow, what is going to change now? You're going to see some development. He was shot and killed.
I guess therein, it's not just the fact that there's the temptation, but if you don't participate in the corruption, the system, because we've reached, I can't say that there's enough of the system that is not corrupt for it to not be systemic.
So you'll be eliminated if
so,
you don't
right,
participate.
the system will look at you as an anomaly that has to be removed, whether it is they get you to resign, they get you to just shut up and stay in your corner, or if it's desperate enough, they off you. So how do we...
Yeah. So you had this notion going around, are we a failed state? Are we failing state?
I mean, we've been asking that
what
for
we
months
are
now,
is a narco state. Who is pulling the strings are really those who are at the top of the food chain in the narco world. And we've created a system to engender that, to embody that, whether it's through politicians, whether it's disemboweling the procurement legislation, whether it's a failure to have finance legislation, whether in fact we had, and it's still there, ship rider agreements, but you don't want that because you will capture the cocaine. I don't know if you saw that report recently. CARICOM worked in tandem with Interpol, and through the Caribbean, they caught a number of people with cocaine and drugs, whatever it is, and arrested people. In Trinidad, what happens? Yes, you find the cocaine. Yes, you find marijuana. Yes, you burn the field. Yes, you find guns in some being imported. But nobody gets arrested.
No,
nobody.
Because
what kind of system is that?
It's scary though, because I remember in Moruga. In Moruga, there's the Moruga River, and there's a whole lot of marijuana and a whole lot of stuff that happens in the things in there. But to get whatever you have, whether it's guns or drugs, or it is from Moruga or Laloon or Marak to the rest of Trinidad, you have just one road. You have just one road. So you ask yourself, why can't the police just stop and that's one road and have roadblocks and so on? But you know what I found out from...
Have the roadblock on it for sure.
What I found out is that in many instances, which is again, which I said people don't understand how dangerous and scary the situation is, that in many instances, that the people who are transporting these things out are the police, are being done in police vehicles. And I don't think, we kind of like, no, but I don't know if you recall, this only came across when the US citizen had gotten chopped up and put in a barrel and all that thing, and they had this big case where they arrested soldiers and some other people and all that. And when you read the thing in the court about that specific case, is that he was transported from one place to the next, but escorted by police vehicles. So you really need to ask yourself, because it's a scary place. You're afraid to talk even about it because they say, oh, Albert is talking about this and that. I have met a senior police officer who said to me that when the people come and they say, listen, this is happening or that is happening, that he can't get his officers to move. They say, I'm not going.
So can you trust in a system that you've created like that?
Well, we have to break for news, but I'll just remind people, the 2 Canadian commissioners that they tried to bring in, I'm pretty sure it wasn't because of job performance reasons that they left, right? I'll just throw that one out there, why they left. But we have to break for news in an hour. When we return, we'll open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewer, on this situation, because I think as much as we've been speaking about crime somewhat regularly for the last 2 to 3 weeks, I'm getting to a new low with regards to my frustrations. My guests, they're already there with their fears and concerns. We want to hear from you, the viewers. What do you think about this? When we return.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Police constable among 4 charged with land fraud. Ministry of Health hosts a National HIV/AIDS Symposium. HDC to reduce subsidy on housing and rent. And internationally, North Korea fires suspected long-range missile. Now for the details. A constable of police is among 4 persons charged by officers of the Anti-Corruption Investigations Bureau with a land fraud this week. PC Curtis Pierre, last attached to Central Division, and Sandy Danisa Pierre were jointly charged with 3 counts of possession of forged documents. German Cassandra Pierre and Ches Braffith were charged with 1 count each of conspiracy to defraud. Reports indicate that in July 2022, personnel attached to the Land Management Division of the Commission of State Lands Office discovered 3 fraudulent standard agricultural leases for 90 acres of state lands purportedly leased to 3 persons. On Tuesday, the Ministry of Health held a National HIV/AIDS Symposium under the theme The First 95, Partnering to Close the Gap. The main focus of the symposium was to generate consensus through collaboration by all stakeholders. Under the stewardship of Minister Terence Yelsing, representatives from major organizations came together to have meaningful discussions on the strategies that would be enacted to address the first 95 of the UN AIDS target and increase the rates of detection of HIV/AIDS in Trinidad and Tobago. The Housing Development Corporation is seeking to reduce the subsidy on houses and rent. This was revealed during a joint select committee on Wednesday by Managing Director Digicel McFarlane.
The policy broadly outlines how the price of the units, and the price of the units will be at the lower of the cost, the value of the unit, and with a maximum subsidy of 25%. This is a decision that was approved by the board and is before Cabinet for approval.
On to international news now. North Korea has fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, but it failed mid-flight, says the South Korean military. The ICBM launch, the North's 7th this year, sparked an alert in Japan, but fell short, landing in the sea. Tensions are escalating amid fears the North will soon conduct a nuclear test. On Wednesday, both Koreas fired missiles near each other's waters. The exchange saw the most number of missiles launched by the North in a single day. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce, the mega laugh festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Sun, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. A very well, a somewhat controversial issue. Ironically, as I was now speaking to someone off air, there will be those that might be saying that, hey, we off the deep end, we're being too sensational, what we're saying is way too extreme. And then there'll be others who not only would agree with us, but they will go further with their opinion. And I know for a fact that some people have had opinions even more depressing than what we have said here this morning, not just in these times, but I'm talking years ago with regards to the corruption in our law enforcement. But we will open up, and when I say law enforcement, not just the TTPS, but the entire national security apparatus. We'll open up the phone lines. You, the viewer, could call in if there's anything else you want to speak about, if anybody has any clarification with regards to the Todd Street project, because ever since we got the first caller a couple of weeks ago, it's been difficult to actually know what the true details are. But call in. If you have anything else you want to talk about, yes, we will also listen to that as well. But we have our first caller from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Small and the two gentlemen there.
Morning. Good morning.
You know, this is so funny, that this kind of corruption that we're talking about, I don't see anybody who's going to go into office, who's going to be a leader, who's going to change this. Because the situation is just, is like a one-off. If we don't deal with the big monster that we have, which is the Constitution, that have oppressive laws up to this day. Mr. Smith will know that, and Mr. Abreu will know that. These laws that was since from back then and is still up to this day in the present. And I can tell you that because I work in San Fernando General Hospital for 20 years. And the kind of things that I see happen there, you know that there are laws for certain people and laws for different people, and especially the black people. The black people will always be charged for if they take a toilet paper. But a man could take an ultrasound machine and nothing will go. You won't hear nothing about that. And until we deal with this, we need people like Mr. Hammersmith and Avrales, who said that they know, and I'm sure they know these things a long time, right? What they was doing, we're supposed to come out as a people now and go before the government and let them know that these are the things that we want change if we is to get the right change that we really want. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I mean, we have another caller from Kirap. I'll quickly say, though, to what extent could we trust the government to make the changes? The politicians, not just the government, the politicians in parliament right now. Who are we going to trust to lead that change? We are, I know you all want to answer that. We'll have a caller from QREP. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good program as usual.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what the topic is because I just switch on.
Well, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
The guy in the dark suit there, I heard him talk something about the police. I don't know, is he a police officer?
No, he's
not. Okay, all right. Well, I want to say that I talk from the police aspect and trusting the citizens, right? The police has to do a lot of house cleaning first. Because I could tell you, I was in national security for over 34 years. There's a lot of corruption inside the police service. I am telling you that. And the head, the commissioner had to do inside cleaning. In other words, get rid of the rogue element. Because you have a very hard work, a very hard job to do. Let me show you, let me give you a little example. I have been observing certain illegal activities taking place in a certain area, right? They're dealing with drugs and so on. And I went to a certain station close in the district, right? And made several reports to tell them, make certain patrols and certain shakedown and rub down and keep the guys and them uneasy. No action has been taken place. I went to the closest station closer to that one, make a same report, observation over more than a 6-month period, nothing taken place. If it's a normal citizen, what do you expect that person to feel? Not that the police protecting the area? Huh? It went so fast a certain section came to wipe out one of the guys who pushed in there because they wanted to take over. And it reached so far so that one of the guys came to kill the guy who was there first pushing. The guy sitting in the chair, they hit him 2 shots, one to his chest, one in his mouth. Luckily, he survived. Right? The day in question, police came on the scene, but I happened to hear the shots. I was close by. I thought I was not going to watch them close, and I hear pow, pow. I say, well, but this is not fire car, this is like a shotgun. Not peep and look out. I see the guy slump on the chair. I call 999. Well, he's very lucky. I called 999. Thank God they came very fast and they rushed him to Mount Hope. He survived. Right? When police do arrive on the scene, maybe about the second police vehicle came about 50 minutes after, and I'm telling the officers, I say, brother man, all they do come down here and do kind of patrols. But one of the guys happened to see me and say, well, like, I know your face somewhere. I said, well, they do come and do patrols here. I said, look where it reached there. He said, we don't be in the area. I said, mister, you see how they start, so let me finish it off. Because I tell you, I've been observing over a 6-month period, right? Because I have been involved with national security over a period of 34 years. I know what I'm speaking about. So what conclusion, if it's a civilian, what they would make? Not that the police controlling the area. Huh? And if you came to, a guy came to take on the next one. And certain people in the area are showing them firearm here, firearm in this block. Or they bring bam, 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 check out this, nothing has been done. How you want the civilian to feel? Eh? And they want to draw the trust of the civilian. I'm someone in national security. I went so far as to go upstairs. When I was asked to see the commission, you tell me, you got to have an appointment.
All right, Cole, I'll have to ask you to wrap it up there.
To them and you tell you have to have an appointment to see the COP?
Yeah.
Foolishness.
Thank you, caller. I'm sorry to have to cut you, but we have other calls. But that last point there about having to get an appointment or at least giving information, and it seems as though nobody is acting on it in any meaningful way. I don't know what to say. Our media ambassador will have a lot to speak to me about on Monday. We have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning. Morning, sir.
Morning. I am totally fed up with this country and the way it's being run and the way things are happening. I mean, I'm a person who worked very hard in my young days and to achieve whatever that I have. I have sent my children to universities, come back here, and I have my grandchildren now at university, and she's going to graduate very soon and major in finance and economics. And what are they going to come back to? This is what we have to we work hard to try and achieve so they can have a better life of living. We're just going around in circles for many years now. Same talk, old talk, everything. And nothing is being done. People are only giving a talk, and people taking it and running with it. Something needs to be happening drastically concerning this crime problem. Crime is the main problem in this country. Nobody wants to invest here because of crime. And if the government and whoever is in charge cannot see that, what is wrong with them? They've got to put the country first. People have too much stupidness about party and this party and what. It doesn't matter who is running the country. Run it properly, that is what you're interested in. I am disgusted and totally fed up of a person who I used to work, I take night and make day and work hard for my children and them. Good Christ, man. I'm calling from Bruins. The only time I voted for UNC is when Mr. I forget his name here, because he lives down in my area here. And that's the only time I voted for them. But for heaven's sake, man, and Mr. Hamilton is a decent gentleman. These are the kind of people I want to vote for. These kind of riffraffs are all over the place. Good morning, gentlemen. You have a nice day and try and keep on doing the upliftment you do all the time through. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. You know, I remember the MP for Chaguanas East at that time was no. It was oh gosh, I just remember. And I'll get back to his name.
Okay.
But he actually took a map and said, this is where the drug place is, and posted it online, sent it to the police, and they did absolutely nothing.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. We have another caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. I was shaking yesterday as I watched that Roshill video, especially after I had just seen a Uvalde clip with one of the kids calling 911 while the shooter was there and the police were in the corridor for 77 minutes. Remember that? So we're all in shock at watching this, but do we know how often that happens, though? One parent said her children attended that school and they're perfectly fine, but she was sure that this could have been past students. People are always talking about stigma, particularly Scotland and Hines, but it begs the question, what in the world has Fitzgerald Hines done there? Anywhere at all. His navel string is buried in Laventille. He was the MP there for 12 years, from 1995 to 2007. These thugs could be in their 20s. What were their lives like? What was the quality of life of their parents? What environment did they live in? Also, Adrian Leonsi, or something like that, is the MP. I've never heard of him. Hines was again the MP in 2015 and 2020, and the Minister of Youth Affairs. Well, we know he's failed at national security, and we're not his concern. But when they kicked dirty water on him in 2018, he felt insulted, affronted, threatened by, and annoyed with the obscenity and disrespect shown to him. Those were his words at his trial the other day. So I wonder what he feels like today. Is he feeling the trauma that he talks about all the time? What big, long, convoluted piece of rubbish will he spew now? At Gatsby Dolly, how many prayers and thoughts will she send to the parents of these little children, man, for heaven's sake? And also the school that she's just approved, the HDC in South. Will she send thoughts and prayers there too? Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Yeah. The MP I want to talk about Stephen Cadiz. He's the one that yes, he had posted this thing and said, this is the street, this is the block. He did a location.
A Google map.
Yeah. And
now it goes back. Now, granted, him publishing it is a big warning sign. A, vacate the premises if you're doing criminal activity here. So that is the flip side. That said, far too often there's indications that either information or intelligence, whatever the grade of quality is, reaches the police, tips, whatever. Some concerned citizen, like the caller, telling them something. And we don't, not only do we not see any action taken on some of these specific things, but just overall, if you know that these people shooting up in whatever shootout are gang members, because they use the term known gang members, and we can't get evidence to prosecute them.
Well, the police have their families. These gang members tell these police officers, listen, I know where you live in, I know who your family is. Leave us alone. And no one police officer, and you have to understand this, it has to come from the top. It's all leadership. No one police officer is going to say, I'm going to play hero, when above me there's no support.
And nobody backing me.
Yeah. We have a caller from San Fernando. Good morning.
Morning, Sean. Morning to your panel this morning. I know that yesterday you had a problem with your lines.
Yes.
Yeah, just two things. One, the level of corruption in the country has escalated over the years. It is a runaway horse in this country. And the horse has bolted out of the stable. And we're now trying to close the door. And I don't think him closing the door will help you at this point in time. I think that people are hearing a lot of talk shops and a lot of talk. There is not being translated in any kind of tangible action that we've seen any results taking place. I'll tell you one simple little thing. In the immigration department in Trinidad, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister at the time, the Minister of Labour, who was Ms. Baptiste. And the whole granting of work permits to expatriates in this country was being manipulated. People on the board sitting down granting those permits were being given junkets and vacations for their family and all those kinds of things in order to manipulate work permits for expats coming into the country. And when I drew the attention to the Prime Minister and Ms. Baptiste, they gave me a follow-up meeting in 20 hours, but it was brushed under the carpet with a number of other things that I outlined in a letter to the Prime Minister. The second thing is this 3rd Street apartment thing. needs to be monitored carefully. I want to say this. If the government go through this in St. Leather for West, which I have been a resident for the past 60 years, and they do this, then this will be the Waterloo for the PNM in San Fernando West and for the rest of the country. Because that is not feasible, that is illegal. I heard Ms. Camille Robinson Regis, under the pretext of giving housing, say they will build houses any way they want. And if they do this, this is a crime against the residents of Leisure for West, and it's a crime against the country. They need to understand, because Leisure for West has been underdeveloped and not been developed. For the past 60 years I live in Leisure for West, nothing has been done. I want you to know, except them building and widening a road on the highway and building a walkway in Bakari. That is what they do. And they're saying that this is development. I want you to know, there are jobless youths in Leisure for West. There's drugs in Leisure for West. In the plannings of Leisure for West, shots ring out every day. And if they can't fix this, then somebody needs to be bold enough and say, you know what, like Elizabeth Truss, I cannot do the job, and I am stepping down from this. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you. Although I very much highly doubt we will ever be so blessed as to get a politician in Parliament right now with that level of awareness. We have last caller for the day from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Hey, morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Traver Samuel Smith.
Good morning.
Sean, you know, the issue that we're having with this inadequate police service is spelled out easily. If you go on the TTPS website, go to their strategic plan. That is what they have up on their website. From 2017 to 2019, signed off by Mr. Stephen Williams. And go to the SWOT analysis and go to the weaknesses and the threats of the police service, and they know exactly what the problem is in the police service. Go and read the SWOT analysis on that report, or on that strategic plan, because I am surprised that they haven't had another one since they've had another commissioner for that when Gary Griffith was there. So the only one that is there is Stephen Williams' plan from 2017 to 2019. That is the problem. Go and read that, the SWOT analysis for the police service, and we will see they know what the problem is, they just can't fix it.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. I mean, to some extent, I could believe that.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we're talking about is not how to identify the problem. We're on the outside and we have a basic idea of what we think the problem is. Who has the will to solve the problem?
It's who's going to build the cat. But the reality is, it always comes back to the number one story, which is leadership. If you have leadership that is committed, I always go back to the scenario that existed in Singapore when they sat down and said, listen, these are the problem. And when you talk about SWOT analysis, you need a scientific approach to how you're going to deal with the future. And once you deal with that, you're going to find solutions. I personally don't believe that we have a whole lot of bad police officers. But the few bad ones are so powerful within the service that the few good ones will say, let me just leave it alone. I have my family, I have my children to look after, I'm getting a salary at the end of the day, leave them alone. Yeah. Until such time that they feel that the leadership is going to support them in their endeavors to change this country. Until such time, the people of Trinidad and Tobago see leaders that they know are committed towards a change in Trinidad and Tobago. Because I just want to make it just real quick. There are people in Trinidad and Tobago who have never lined up for a driver's license, never lined up for a passport, never lined up for an inspection certificate, never lined up for a firearm user's permit, and they have all of those things brought to them legally with all the right documents and signatures. How do they do that? Because in this country, I think Tim alluded to that, it's not so much of how much effort you make, but it's who you know.
And who knows you.
And who knows you.
Well, Mr. Amos, I do have another question. I don't know how easy, but based your opinion on this, is it that the politicians just spend too much time trying to cover up things and look good for the next election, and they literally they're just so blinded by, look, we need to fix up this one and pay back that one and kick back that one, And all they could do is just, well, nothing to see here, smoke screen and mirrors, and we don't get any real, because as the caller said, what is up more road? That's not development. We have road choke points. They just want to add more road, but we don't actually develop the transportation network.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Steve hit, the nail on the head when he says, who is going to bell the cat? And what we don't recognize is that how powerful our Prime Minister is in our system. All right. I mean, we have a Prime Minister who is more powerful, has more powers than the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of the UK. You really have... In our country. In our country. You have a system set up for autocracy. Look at how the system works. I am the political leader of the party.
Yes.
I determine who will go in what constituencies. They have, no matter what they say in the Constitution, they have a veto power. We get into power, I name the cabinet.
Yes.
We're in power, I determine, I have the say, the ultimate say in a number of high-ranking posts. Commissioner of Police,
the President,
Chief Justice, the President, all of those posts. So all the power resides in the Prime Minister. And who your Prime Minister is and how he works will determine how your country runs.
Because
so when you ask, who bells the cat?
Because all the checks and balances, he picks the people that are in the spots that are supposed to check him.
Exactly.
And then even because in the states, the House of Representatives and the Senate, they could go separate to the president if they want to, but our
we just have a facade.
Are the cabinet.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then to make it what the whole problem is, the real core of the problem is, how do you become that powerful Prime Minister? Well, it costs $50 million at an election.
That's all?
Yes.
Yes?
That's a number I heard.
Yeah, well, it could be more than that, but it costs between, on the average of $50 million for an election.
Well,
so where
exactly.
are you going to
power
exactly?
Reside,
Yeah.
not with the Prime
not
Minister,
exactly. Who has the $50 million?
Who gave him the wherewithal?
Yeah. I guess, gentlemen, as I said in the segment before the news, then that's the implication, because perhaps some of the reasons why we see bad decisions is not because they are that stupid, although, depending on who you talk to, that is debatable with regards to politicians, with some of the things they say sometimes. But some of these bad decisions could be because they have to facilitate somebody else who wants them to be done a certain way.
Who's going to bell the cat? The fact is, the only way that we can chop off the head of our narco state holders is, in fact, if you get independent people. So that's why our ship rider agreement needs to be resurrected. You have the Caribbean community working with Interpol, actually arresting people involved in guns and drugs, but Trinidad is not part of that. So your ship rider brings in an independent source who has no affiliation, no patronage, nobody know who they are, and they have nobody they could call.
Yes.
And you need a special prosecutor who is independent as well. Until you get those things, we're going to remain going on a downward trend.
Well, folks, we unfortunately have to close. I guess the implication is we need independent parties. We need who's going to bell the cat. Ultimately, I guess it will be the voter. The voter has to bell the cat. Quickly, Steve.
We really have to now recognize that unless the people of Trinidad and Tobago seriously look at alternatives to those two major political parties, we are not going anywhere. And that is where the answer lies. There must be our hope, the hope for Trinidad and Tobago, hope for a better tomorrow, lies with the people recognizing that if I want my family and them to live here and have a good life, I have to vote differently.
Well, folks, that's more or less all the time we have today. I will just close saying this, and I'm going to remind people once again, let us not take it for granted that our society could descend to further depths of depravity in whatever shape, form, or fashion, because we have numerous examples. Even our democracy, as our law and order crumbles further, is at risk, because it's never overnight. It's just that it comes so subtle We're surprised when the end result reaches us. It seems as though it was overnight. But trust me, it is happening slowly and steady now. Now is the time we could try to intervene and interdict it from happening, because we do not know how far we will fall, and we do not want to leave it up to chance to find out that answer. We want to intervene now. And as my co-host would say, ironic as it is, today is a good day to have a good day, but we need everybody to put up their best foot forward in order to make it a good day. Thank you on behalf of Mr. Alvarez and Mr. Hamill-Smith. My name is Sean Michael Small. For all of us here at WSN, we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.